Hi, Maria. You study a
I
very fascinating topic about social cooling and the contrasting term of it, post-shame society. What are those? Can you explain?
I must admit that I'm not a full expert yet because these are the topics that kind of have peaked, under my actual research interests, but now I can't overlook them anymore, and now I've turned my attention to them. I find them fascinating. So whoever wants to talk about them, hit me up. But social cooling is basically it's self-censorship that people are staying with the herd, sorry for the metaphor work here. The fear of being socially sanctioned, that somebody comes up and says that, "Oh, you think differently, you think very differently, that's weird, be socially sanctioned, we're going to shame you." The fear of that happening tends to grow in certain groups. Like, for example, in Estonian context, there have been studies that indicate that present-day youth are not that interested in participating in larger public discussions because they fear condemnation. They fear the extreme sanctioning that takes place in public forums, in online spaces. And when I talk about this, then I'm thinking about, the very vile commenting cultures that we have, where somebody comes up, says something, I don't know, about an argument, and then people join and band together to mock their appearance, their name, turning this into like this vile, not even, it's not discussion, but it's just like this horrible e-bile. And young people have taken notice that that's how politicians these days talk, and that's how their parents talk, and that's how their grandparents talk on Facebook, for example, and they don't want to participate. And and we can notice these, not sparks, the opposite of what spark is, in terms of social cooling, which makes me really, really worried. And on the other side, we have post-shame societies, or like post-shame notions. And that tends to be the opposite, the absence of shame. Trump was very often talked within this context. It's almost as some people and some groups have forgotten and have just somehow got it, operated from them, removed from them, the whole emotion of shame, which means that borders are being crossed every day. The very fact and the act of, crossing some borders has become a capital. It can be used as political capital. It can be used as as the gains of economical capital. And, crossing these borders and this YOLO, everybody's going to forget about this anyway type of mentality has taken over. And no actual, consequences are evident in these situations, which means that very many people have turned to pushing these boundaries as their daily job. And here we see a lot of polarizing, and here we see lots and lots of, the shock value type of communication happening. And the outrage is the desired reaction there. So, these two sides.
But will this mean that we have to choose between those two, or are there any like mixtures also possible that I, in some contexts, may use the technique of social cooling, and in the other context of, well, I have nothing to hide, and post shame in the sense. Are we going to mix those, or are we going to see more of that sort of polarization here?
I'm not sure, but I have a cunning feeling that it's going to be the latter one, that there's going to be a lot more polarization. And, the whole, just like two camps once again, people who think that social cooling is normal and okay, and people who think that this aggravated post-shame, you know, this communication is the norm. And there's going to be like even more of a battle between these two. So obviously it would be great if we could kind of think for yourselves what strategies and what, I don't know, what situations are you cool with? What do you desire for yourself? And, you know, just be prepared for whatever comes from these decisions.
You mentioned the study on Estonian youth who decline from participation and engagement because they are afraid of the possible shaming and so on, and they choose social cooling because of that. Is there anything what we as media scholars or adults can do here?
Yeah, you know, get our act together. That means that, you know, just step away from the computer when you're angry. Don't do that. Like, don't let that flow out of your fingertips, and just, you know, set an example is the first thing. But also probably we need like legal frameworks, we need social frameworks, we need all sorts of different frameworks that would protect the quality of discussions. And that's like a really, really huge, like a huge problem. And of course, obviously, we're only halfway in arguing through the discussions about freedom of speech, what can be allowed to certain groups and what is not allowed, and where should we self-censor, and where do we let others censor either us or others. So there is this huge field of discussions that we still need to have.
Well, thank you, Maria, and I hope your studies will contribute to finding and reaching those discussions.